So most of you on the call are members of People's Power and Light, and today we want to take the time to talk about how buying green power works, how does People's Power and Light and its members do what we do, and how can we use your help to help us build our membership and support more local renewable energy. So really, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty about what it takes to buy green power and why we do what we do. I will start off by giving an overview of the organization. I understand that most of you guys are our members on the call, but for those who are not, we will go through a brief introduction. And bear with me one moment here while I go to the next slide. Here we go. So People's Power and Light, we are a local nonprofit. We were founded in 2002. We work to make energy more affordable and environmentally sustainable. I will mention that we have a sister organization that you might have already heard of called Mass Energy Consumers Alliance. We merged back in 2006. So we are one, and we both are pro-consumer, pro-environment advocates. The only difference is that People's Power and Light is the name that we do business as in Rhode Island and in Massachusetts as Mass Energy. So as a nonprofit that is pro-consumer, pro-environment, we get to represent our members at the Environment Council of Rhode Island, which represents a group of nonprofit organizations that really are supporting similar policies that will help drive the environmental issues that we all work towards supporting. We're also members of the New England Clean Energy Council. That really represents the renewable energy industry. So we are very proud to be members of both because it just really shows that we have a step in the environmental community and also in the industry. So the programs that we offer our Green Power program. Some of you might be members of our green energy programs like New England Green Start and New England Wind, and that's what we will focus on today. But we also run a discount heating oil service, which works like a buyer's group. We have over 13,000 members across Rhode Island and Massachusetts that are paying a little bit less to buy their discount heating oil. We know that we have to meet the need of the present, and really the present is that we still have people heating with oil. So we want to help them save money. And really the bridge between our green energy programs and our discount heating oil service are our energy efficiency programs. And we'll talk a little bit more about energy efficiency. But as I mentioned, right now this introduction will help you get to know People's Power and Light a little bit more. And we already talked about ECRI, the Environment Council of Rhode Island, and the New England Clean Energy Council. So energy efficiency, really our position as a nonprofit, we don't do a no-cost home energy assessment ourselves. When you have a technician come into the home, evaluate and assess how efficient your home is and what measures you can take to make it even more efficient. But really what we do, we connect our members and the general public with those resources that are available to them. And this also helps us advocate for good policy because we understand these energy efficiency programs, and actually our executive director sits on the Rhode Island Energy Efficiency Collaborative. So that really helps us make sure that energy efficiency continues to move forward, and that we know is the cheapest way for us to really save energy, right? We're going to save the energy that we don't use. So we always like to start with energy efficiency, and then we look at what can you do next. So our website has many tools, ripower.org/energy efficiency. If you have not visited that part of our website, we strongly encourage you to do so. We have tips, resources, and if you have not gotten a no-cost energy assessment, you can even sign up through our website. We also have a blog, ripower.org/blog, and here we talk about what is the latest in the renewable energy markets, in energy efficiency, what policies we're working to support. So we encourage you to subscribe for our blog as well. All right, so now we're going to get started. Why we are all here today. We're here for a Green Power webinar, and we like to call this our Green Power Bootcamp. I am one of the presenters, Priscilla De La Cruz. I am the Marketing and Programs Director here. I've been with the organization for about 6 years. And shortly you will hear from Catherine Burnham. She is our Marketing and Programs Coordinator. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to focus on renewable energy in Rhode Island and the role that People's Power and Light plays. We're going to get into what are the differences between the compliance and the voluntary market. And the voluntary market is what we, People's Power and Light, and our members are part of when we're committing to making the switch and buying green electricity through our utility bill. People's Power and Light program, we're really going to get into how New England Green Star and New England Wind work, which are the 2 programs that we offer on bill for National Grid customers. And a lot of our presentation is also going to focus on renewable energy certificates. What are they? How do they work? Why do we need these certificates? We're also going to talk about the principles of the power grid. How does our mix, People's Power and Light's mix, compare to National Grid's mix? What's in the power that you get, and how does the New England grid actually work? We're also going to talk about competitive suppliers, which you've probably heard from many of these competitive suppliers recently because of the rate hikes that we experienced after the new year. And finally, we're really going to focus on how can you talk about all of this? How can you get a friend or a family member to make the switch and to support more local renewable energy? So before we move on, I am going to pass the next part of the presentation to Catherine Burnham. She's going to talk about policy.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us. As Priscilla said, my name is Kat Burnham, and I've been working with People's Power and Light for a little while now. In addition to our program administration, I do a lot of advocacy work on behalf of People's Power and Light. And this year is particularly exciting because there is a bill to extend the renewable energy standard. And that is a very important policy that's in place right now, and we're advocating for its expansion into many years to come. They require suppliers to have 6.5% new renewable sources and another 2% from existing new sources, plus another 1.5% more per year. So what that means is that each year suppliers are required to have an expanding amount of renewable energy sources in their mix. And by new, it means that it has to be a source created after 1997, so it is an effective additional new source of energy. And this breaks down the policy in a little more detail. In Massachusetts, our sister company calls them Class 1. We call them new sources here, and that's what the compliance market is. There was a delay in 2014 of the ramp up of the percentage, but we're hopeful that more green power programs will bring more sources on the market and continue to ramp up the percentage of green power in the overall energy mix. So that's the compliance market. Everybody has to have a little green power in their mix. But with People's Power and Light, you can switch and jump decades ahead of the law. And so I like this graphic a lot. It kind of demonstrates our mission and our role in the energy mix. That you can see on the left what the energy pool used to look like. It's a heck of a lot of fossil fuels that pollute our air and aren't sustainable, aren't reliable. And our mission is to move towards bringing more and more green power, and notably wind turbines, into the overall energy mix. And we can't do that without the support of our many members who green their electricity. And so public policy that we advocate for is critical, certainly, but voluntary demand is really what accelerates progress. So our nearly 8,000 members are really what's putting more green power on the grid, and that's making a meaningful impact. So we're just going to pause here. This is our first momentary break for questions. Priscilla, is there any questions that were sent in or emailed?
Not via GoToMeeting, but we did receive a question via reply@ripower.org. The question is, we know 8.5% renewable energy is not enough. How can we get to 50% renewable energy?
That's a great question. That's part of our mission, is to get to 80% by 2020 as much as possible. As I mentioned, a big part of getting more green power on the grid is our advocacy work, working with legislators and the public to get an extension of the Renewable Energy Standard, or the RES as it's called. We work with groups like Clean Water Action, the Acadia Center, the Conservation Law Foundation, and finally, of course, we encourage more folks to sign up for green power. Through voluntary demand, we can increase renewables on the grid.
Great. Thank you for that question, and thank you, Kat.
And there'll be more time for questions as the presentation continues. And so, as I mentioned, we wouldn't be able to do the work that we do without several collaborators. I'm going to pass it back to Priscilla, who will mention our partnerships and then dig deeper into our green power programs and renewables.
Great. Thank you, Kat. So this slide really just illustrates some of the other groups that we work with. These are great environmental organizations, and you even see other groups like Rhode Island Interfaith Power and Light that we work with. We've also worked with Save the Bay, Clean Water Action, which we're actually including them and the Audubon Society of Rhode Island and Mass Audubon as well. These were the groups that we were talking to at since the very beginning, asking them if they would support our endeavors to create the green energy programs that you see today. And these groups are very supportive. And in fact, groups like Save the Bay helped us sign up the first 200 members or so that we got into the first program we launched, New England Green Star. So really, we can't do the work that we do without these groups. Really, our partnerships are key in helping us grow our membership and getting our word out there. Other groups I'll mention, we work with Sierra Club, both in Rhode Island and in Massachusetts. We also work with Urban Greens Food Co-op. Other groups include Mass Audubon, which I mentioned, Mothers Out Front, and the Center for Ecotechnology. So we just want to show that in Rhode Island and in Massachusetts, is just key to our success is these relationships that we have. Some of these groups actually run campaigns for us till this very day and help us recruit more members. So now we want to show you a video. This video was created by students in the School of Rhode Island School of Design. So enjoy it. Great. Hope you enjoy that video as much as we still do. And that really just drives home the message that we work to create these local partnerships. And there you see RISD, a local school, really working to support our message of adding more renewable energy to the grid. It's just a much funner representation of how we do it. All right. So next, let's talk about our green power choices. And that you heard there was definitely intentional. We wanted to make sure that you were paying attention. So our green power choices, New England Wind. We offer this program which provides 100% local wind power between Rhode Island and Massachusetts, other projects that we support. And that is at an additional cost of 3.8 cents per kilowatt hour. So it's all based on your usage. We would say that for the average home that uses about 500 to 700 kilowatt hours per month, that can translate to about $21 a month. And another key point to our programs is that because we're nonprofit, that extra amount or that premium that you're paying to support local renewable energy, it's actually federally tax deductible if you itemize your deductions. So it's really a win-win for you, the grid, the community, and for People's Power and Light, because we continue to do the work that you support us, that you help us and support. So New England Green Start is our second option. That is a little bit less costly. It's 2.4 cents per kilowatt hour. That would be about $14 a month for the average household. I usually like to say that's how much I spend a week on coffee. So it's great to know that by just contributing $14 a month, you're really supporting local sources like wind, solar, cow power or anaerobic digester, and low impact hydro. And as I mentioned earlier, both of these programs are offered on bill. It's easy. As some of you know, it's right through your electric bill. You would see it under your monthly supply mix. So now we're going to look at the green power mix. What we offer, as I just mentioned, is New England Wind. This is just the disclosure label that we send to our members quarterly through our newsletter Currents, and then New England Green Start. And here you just see a clear representation of how much wind is in our mix compared to digester gas, solar, and small hydro. Now the power grid. So here we're going to slow down a bit just to talk about how the New England grid works. And the point that we want to drive home is that suppliers meet demand using contracts. So they have to meet your electricity needs using what we call contracts. This mix is based on contracts, not on which electrons actually come to your home. And we will talk about shortly why we cannot track an electron. And this just shows here natural gas is most of where our mix comes from, and then what follows that is nuclear, and then we have very small parts, very small amounts of wind, for example, and that's really what, as Kat mentioned earlier, that we want to get ahead of what the law mandates of these utilities to provide. So the power grid, as I mentioned earlier, that utilities will meet your demands based on contract, and we cannot track the flow of an electron. So you see here, it's really hard to distinguish which electron is a dirty electron coming from coal, or which is a clean electron coming from a wind turbine. So really what happens is that the power the electron is generated, it goes onto the grid. It's one big pool. There's no way to distinguish where that electron specifically came from, and then it goes into your home. So that electron, once it goes into your home, you don't know if that came from coal, or if it came from wind, or from natural gas. And we will talk about how we do know how much clean energy goes onto our New England grid. So what are you actually buying when you choose to buy green electricity? We mentioned earlier that we were going to talk about what is a REC, which is also a renewable energy certificate. But you might have heard other names like tradable renewable certificate, green tag, the environmental attributes of renewable energy or green energy, renewable energy certificate. So they all mean the same thing, luckily. And what this image is going to show is what is a REC. It represents 1 megawatt hour of renewable energy produced. So it's really a tag with a unique identifier number. So that is the tag unique identifier number that goes onto the grid. That's how we know how much renewable energy is going onto that grid, and really our goal is to displace these fossil fuels. So for each megawatt hour of wind, for example, that is produced, there is a REC, a renewable energy certificate produced, which 1 is produced, and then 1 megawatt hour of physical electricity. Anything you want to add to that, Kat?
Yeah, I just want to jump in and say that People's Power and Light, we have a GIS account with the PUC and with National Grid and everyone else to clarify that there's no double counting. And so we use those unique identifier numbers, as Priscilla mentioned, to make sure that when we buy a REC, it can't be retired and used again by somebody else. So you must have a GIS account in order to participate.
And we will get into shortly what are the projects that we support. And as Kat mentioned, any renewable energy certificates that come from that project, they pertain to our members. So no one can claim that they also get that power. So the generator itself cannot say that is my power, because once they're selling their renewable energy certificates to a People's Power and Light member, it belongs to that People's Power and Light member. And that tag that Kat mentioned and that GIS account really just helps us track the flow of that renewable energy certificates from the generator to the electric grid.
Yep, that's right.
So this next slide is going to talk about why not all renewable energy certificates are created equal. So here on the left, this we can say represents a project, for example, like in Texas, where we know that there are many wind turbine projects. And in New England here to the right, you see a representation of what it means to buy a REC. So on the left, going back to this Texas project, what we want to focus on here is this renewable energy certificate revenue that goes to the generator. And really you see here that it's not making a difference. It's a really small amount, which really just tells us that this project would have been possible without your contribution or our contribution. So why support a project that otherwise would have still been viable? So what we do here at People's Power and Light, we like to say that we do it the hard way. We want to focus on local renewable energy certificates that are produced right here in New England, because if you see here, look at the significant difference between this red bar here on the right compared to the one on the left. You really see that this generator needed our contribution in order to make this project feasible. And we will talk about what this really means to a developer who's looking to put up a wind turbine. Anything you want to add there, Kat?
Yeah, I'll just say the reason why RECs are so important here in New England is that it's a different playing field from the Midwest. People ask, why don't you buy RECs from elsewhere if they're cheaper there? Well, it just doesn't make that meaningful impact that we're looking for. Without RECs, without our demand, wind turbines and solar projects wouldn't necessarily happen here. That's because of land costs, it's because of scales of economy, and just the size of the projects themselves. It's much easier to put turbines, fields of them, big ones, out in the flat Midwest compared to here in rocky New England. So to put up projects and site them, a REC is incredibly vital. To a Midwestern project, as our director might call it, it's like gravy on top if you can get money for a REC, but here it's essential. So that's something to think about when you're considering green power choices.
And really the key, Kat will get into this when we talk more about competitive suppliers, but when a competitive supplier says, you know, we are supporting renewable energy, you want to ask from where? You want to make sure that you're not supporting a project like we're representing here to the left, because like Kat mentioned, they don't really need your money to make that project possible.
Right.
So making a difference, that's really what we're all about as a nonprofit. Really the spending that you contribute to our programs should translate into new projects that display fossil fuels and not subsidize projects that would have happened without your contribution. It really does matter the type and location of the renewable energy certificates that you buy. And here I just want to point out this is one of the projects that we support, part of our mix. It's a blade signing in Gloucester, Massachusetts. So effective RECs come from new local renewable energy resources, as we mentioned. Really our way is to sign long-term contracts, specifically RECs, with projects built here in New England. So really that long-term contract makes it possible for that developer to put up their project or put up their wind turbine. And this resource map here shows most of our mix right now is coming from wind. There are many reasons why we don't have as much solar in our mix or anaerobic digester. One reason is really how economic it is to put up a wind turbine project. We know that the cost for solar is coming down and for anaerobic digester, so we're positive that you'll start seeing more of these projects pop up all over New England, and People's Power and Light will be behind some of those projects as well. But we do have a lot of wind in our program, and I want to see if there's anything Kat wants to add there.
Yeah, I'll just add that wind power is incredibly energy dense in terms of renewable power. We've seen it's effective. And also I'll add, we're in support of the new deep water offshore wind turbine that's coming to Rhode Island. That's a big point of pride. So often we're in friendly competition with our sister company in Mass. So it's nice to have more renewables down here in Rhode Island where we need them. And as Priscilla mentioned, we're going to give some stories a bit more about these projects later on in the presentation, so look out for that.
And one thing that I also want to add before we move on to showing you some images of the projects that we support and that you, our members, support, I also do want to mention that really, in short, what we're doing, we want to play keep away. We want to make sure that we support projects like this, as many as we can, because really we're keeping these away from utilities. Now they have to go out and find bigger, larger projects to support. So really the end goal is that we're adding as much renewable energy as possible to that local New England grid, and we're displacing fossil fuels. Mm-hmm. An example of an effective REC. To justify the development of these wind turbines, we needed to sign long-term contracts with the town, People's Power and Light, and National Grid. We're excited that this project is happening, and we look forward to doing more. And this is a quote that I just read from a developer that we work with, Mark DiPasquale, Wind Energy Development LLC, and they're behind a local project that we are going to show you an image of. So it really just puts in perspective that these developers look to People's Power and Light, like as we mentioned, to sign these long-term contracts and to make these projects feasible that otherwise would have not been possible without the support of our members. So now I'm going to walk you through some beautiful images of some of the projects that we support. This is an image of Hall 1 in Hall, Massachusetts, which is our first wind turbine project ever. This is the first project that happened in Massachusetts and New England. Mm-hmm. And really People's Power and Light and Mass Energy were there and were able to support this first wind turbine project. The great exciting thing about this project is that they were so successful in Hall with their first turbine that now they have two. People's Power and Light buys the renewable energy certificates for the first one still, and Kat's going to talk later about our exciting wind turbine tours that are coming up. Sandy Woods Home, this is really one of my favorite projects, I want to say. This is in Tiverton because it really just shows how we like to pay it forward. We like to support projects that are really giving back to the community, and this is one of those projects. This is a housing unit development for artists in the community, so really focuses on artists who have a low fixed income, and they live in this beautiful housing development, and then they took it a step further and said, how can we cut back on our energy consumption, and how can we support local renewable energy? So they have their own wind turbine. So it's just really a great project. It's a win-win for the residents and for the communities of Tiverton. Coventry. So this is the project that the developer Wind Energy Development LCC is behind. This is actually a picture, a computer simulation of the project. this project, it's really growing.
Mm-hmm.
We know that People's Power and Light and our members will be behind at least buying the renewable energy certificates from one of the turbines.
Right. And the project was recently expanded beyond just the 2 you see here, and it's projected to have more in the area. And what's neat about that location is it's next to a Superfund site, which usually isn't neat, but even though it's not great for homes, it does make a great place for a wind turbine. And so it's a repurposed value for that land where it won't be harming any other native species or homeowners, and it's elevated so it's excited to get some really excellent power there.
So we're excited to see that project hopefully in the next year or so, and we'll keep you posted.
Right.
Gloucester, Massachusetts, which we showed you another image of this project earlier. There are 2 turbines sited here, and I believe these turbines are the largest turbines that are part of our mix at 1.5 megawatts each, or 2 megawatts.
I think it might be 2, but you saw the picture earlier of the blade sign, and Gloucester is an example of a town that really got excited about renewable energy. Their mayor comes to our turbine tours, and the community all comes out. We've had tours of over 200 people come by, which is okay because we have the spaceport and we have the 2 turbines for it. But that's a really exciting project in the mix.
We actually have another turbine tour coming up in Gloucester this summer, and we will show you later on where you can get all this information about our events as well. So 2 other projects in our mix, Berkshire East in Charlemont, Massachusetts. It's a great project. This is a ski resort. They were faced with a tough business decision. Are we going to go out of business, or are we going to do something to help drive down our costs and stabilize their costs for electricity specifically? So they put up a wind turbine. So our members helped make that turbine possible, and the ski resort didn't stop there. They actually put ground-mounted solar panels as well. St. Mary's Abbey in Rentham, Massachusetts to the right. It's also another favorite project of mine. We were actually just here about a week and a half ago. We did a wind turbine tour. We checked out the turbine. We heard from the sisters and their journey through putting up this turbine. And then they also spoke about their new endeavors. They're working on geothermal. They already have ground-mounted solar, and they make delicious candy. So every time we get to go check out the turbine, we actually get to taste their delicious candy as well. So they're just another great project. Cal Power is one of Kat's favorite projects. We actually do a tour of the anaerobic digester facility. We did one in October. We're going to do another one this summer. And on our website, you can actually go through the virtual tour.
Yeah, and this is a special site, not just because you can pet the cows, which is my favorite. It really takes care of a waste problem. It digests food scraps, manure, and as many of you know, methane is incredibly potent for trapping heat, and so it prevents that emission from going in the air, and it cleans the air much better. Neighbors like it because it smells much better in the area. So it's definitely a fun event, kid-friendly event to go to the farm, and it's a really neat new project in the mix.
Low impact hydro. Up until recently, this is where most of our hydro was coming from Rumford Falls, Maine, and it still does. Any of the hydro in our mix, we make sure that it's low impact, meaning that the hydro facility would not impact its environmental surroundings. So they really do it the right way. And our next project that we just recently welcomed into our mix is called Pawtucket Hydro. So we're really excited to for this new addition into our mix, low impact hydropower in Pawtucket, and we will be doing a tour of this facility later on this summer. So please stay tuned. It's going to be great, and we will hopefully plan something really exciting for you in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. So this image here just shows you the projects that we support across Massachusetts when it comes to solar PV systems. This is just a better way to show you the projects that we support across the state of Massachusetts, because otherwise it would be a lot to look at if we were to place this in our resource map.
And I will add that we are making calls now to add solar in Rhode Island. Costs have come down and RECs are there, so we are going to be adding hopefully solar to our mix soon, so stay tuned for that too.
Yeah, and we will say also, if you are familiar or know of anyone, or you yourself are looking to put up a large solar installation or wind installation, talk to us.
Yeah, we'd love to work with you.
Great. Okay, so this is a great time to pause for questions. So please type any questions that you may have into the chat function, or email us at reply@ripower.org.
All right, so a question just came in, Priscilla. Someone asked, why is there a renewable energy surcharge on my electric bill if I am paying for green power? How is that different?
That is an excellent question. So remember earlier how we talked about the renewable energy standard and how we have a mandate and we require that utilities include a certain percentage of their mix coming from renewable energy. So that is what that surcharge is. It's really complying with the law. It is separate. It is a very small charge. I believe now it could be something, it could be a couple dollars.
Yeah, if your energy use is low, if you're taking advantage of energy efficiency, it's not very high of an additional charge. And I will add that, you know, sometimes it can be confusing that National Grid continues to be your supplier. Our green program offers the green attributes, not necessarily the supply. So it is an unbundled product, but it does, you know, you can have the confidence to say that whatever energy you're using is greened through the grid using our program.
And as Kat mentioned earlier, you're really, when you're choosing to become a member, you're getting ahead of policy by decades. And meaning not only, you know, the utilities are complying and you're paying into this renewable energy surcharge, but you're choosing to be part of the voluntary market. You're really helping to drive the demand for local renewable energy right here in our state and all over New England. So they're really two separate charges, but you can be assured if the requirement is 10% to meet the renewable energy standard, you're doing 110%.
Right? Good stuff. So I'm going to take over the driver's seat here. And, you know, this kind of segues into our next topic that we'll touch on, competitive suppliers. So with the rate hike, as Priscilla mentioned, competitive suppliers seem to be coming out of the woodworks. They're in your mailbox, your email, on TV, and they seem to be offering great offers. However, we just suggest to customers to be cautious. We found that suppliers may be only able to offer savings for a couple months, maybe not that long. We've had members call us that say when they read the fine print, they found out that the small rate that they had was only guaranteed for 3 months, and then after that time they were subject to a variable rate, which means that unexpectedly their rate per kilowatt hour could hike up past the utilities rate. So although we are towards the end of the winter peak, National Grid and other utilities readjust their rates every 6 months. So that's important to consider. You know, there was a perceived shortage of natural gas here in New England, and that's why we experienced the winter rate hike. However, with energy efficiency and more green power on the grid, we can reduce our dependence on natural gas and keep our electric rates low. That said, in addition to the financial concerns, a lot of suppliers are guilty of greenwashing, meaning that they may say they have an excellent renewable energy program, but we found that's not necessarily the case if you know to ask for the RECs. And you know, we're naming names. You can see some examples on the right. As I said, you know, some suppliers try to make compliance look special, but there's the RES that requires suppliers to have a small percentage of renewable energy sources in their mix. And so that doesn't make them special. They're just abiding by the law. The FTC says you can't advertise if you have those extra, if you're just complying. But instead of just complying, it's important to see if you can get effective local RECs. So I hope that, you know, clears up some background on competitive suppliers. And again, it goes back to this graphic, not just getting RECs, but RECs that matter, getting them on the right side from New England here where we can get the jobs and the cleaner air and where those dollars make a difference. If you're buying out-of-state RECs, you're not making a meaningful impact.
And I want to also add to that before we move on to questions that, as Kat mentioned, you know, these competitor suppliers work their way in, and their timing it's perfect. They're really
reaching out to you when they know that rates have increased. But one thing that we want to share with you, we know that rates will be coming down across utilities in New England. So please stay tuned for that and tell your friends that are concerned about the recent rate hikes. And as I mentioned earlier, our blog is a great resource. We're actually going to be publishing a blog article that talks about these changes in rates and what they mean to a green energy member and to the general consumer as well.
Excellent, great. So considering competitive suppliers and considering how they play in the green power market, are there any questions that we have?
So we got a question via email that I would like to ask. So the question is, if I am a member of People's Power and Light, can I do both? Can I be with a competitive supplier and purchase green power as well?
That's a good question. Unfortunately, if you are enrolled with a competitive supplier, you are not eligible to participate in our green power programs. Our green power programs work under the Green Up program that works directly with National Grid. And so it's convenient in that we're right on the bill with National Grid. It's not an additional charge, but if you are getting your electricity supplied from someone else, can't apply our recs to green it. So that's something important to consider too. And if you are with a competitive supplier and you want to switch back to basic service, I also recommend reading the fine print, contacting their customer service to make sure you're not stuck in a contract, that you're not subject to any fees if you want to switch out. There's a lot in there, and so we've heard feedback from members who have switched back to basic service to return to our green power program that it can be tricky if you terminate a contract prematurely.
And Kat, one more question came in earlier that I missed regarding what incentives are available for solar.
That's a good question. So although we support solar, we are not developers ourselves, but of course we are happy to be a resource. Off the top of my head, some great resources that can get you funding or loans for solar, I would check out the Commerce RI website. They handle the Renewable Energy Fund. The Office of Energy Resources here in Rhode Island is an excellent resource, and their website is extensive, showing resources for the distributed generation program, for loans and rebates, etc. And finally, Solarize is another new program. It was wildly successful in Connecticut and Massachusetts, and now it's here in Rhode Island. So I would see if you can get in touch through Solarize with a developer and see if your roof is eligible. But of course, if you can't, put solar panels on your roof, a nice way to green is through our program through the wires. So something to think about.
Great question.
So how to talk about it. Priscilla and I covered a lot of ground today. We might have gone a little faster or slower than we should have, but these are definitely some of the takeaway points. It's easy. Greening your electricity is easy. It's right on your National Grid bill. You don't have to worry about additional charges or putting something on your roof and backyard. It's effective. As we showed with those graphics earlier, we only buy RECs from here in New England, and we make sure we're phasing out fossil fuels that way, and it definitely makes a meaningful impact. It's local. That really ties into being effective. We don't buy from cheap out-of-state sources that would have happened without your dollars. We only put our members' dollars into projects that wouldn't have happened without our program. And it's tax deductible, and that's an important consideration as well. We send letters out every January to all of our members totaling their contributions to the program so that they can itemize it. Because really our green power members are heroes. They're creating new jobs, they're cleaning our air, and they're reducing our dependence on fossil fuels, which has a direct impact on everybody's electric rates. And we're a nonprofit. So People's Power and Light and our sister company, Mass Energy, we are a mission-driven nonprofit, and so we take our members' feedbacks to heart. We do a lot of advocacy work, and we make sure our programs really do make a difference. And so if you're interested in learning more or engaging, I invite you to join us on a next tour or event. You can check out the Next Turbine Tour on our website, ripower.org/tours. You can see those photos there from a recent tour at Mount St. Mary's Abbey in Rentham. Next month, only a couple weeks away, we're hosting Green Drinks here in Providence. It's free. It's open to everybody. I just went last month for a bike event. It was a lot of fun. We'll be at the Point Tavern on the patio, so grab a drink and get to know us. And then our big event this summer, we're bringing back the Summer Boat Cruise in Hull. So it's been a couple years, but you can join our staff and friends on a ferry ride out to the turbine, get to learn about the history and what a great impact it is. It's a lot of fun, free and open to, well, not free, excuse me, it's $10, but it's open to everybody. Tickets are going fast, so please go on the Eventbrite page to RSVP, or again, you can go on ripower.org for other tours that will be coming around the corner this summer. Resources. So again, I covered a lot of ground, but you can definitely find the topics we talked about and the tours and the useful graphics on many pages on our website. The first is our homepage, /renewable energy. Local sources, you can find our map. Tours, you can join us at an event. Wind, you can hear the stories. Cow Power, take that tour, I recommend it. Green Calculator is special in that you can understand how much it costs for your home to go green. You can plug in your kilowatt hour usage, see the amount, and also see how many pounds of carbon dioxide that was prevented from using our green power programs. And green event. If you want to green a meeting, a wedding, or a festival, you can. We can retire RECs for small periods of time on your behalf so that you can claim it as a green event. Green Biz, you can check out our directories to see what businesses in your area use green power. And finally, to access these slides and all of these graphics and resources, ripower.org/bootcamp. You can check it out. So this concludes our program. Again, my name is Kat. I'm here with Priscilla. We've maybe gone a little over time, but we appreciate your questions or feedback if anything comes up. Thank you so much for joining us.
And I just want to add that we are scheduled to end the webinar at 1 o'clock, but if you have questions, you are welcome to stay on. We will not kick you off the line, and we'd love to hear your questions and your feedback. And I also want to reiterate what Kat just mentioned about these resources that are available to you. They're really there for you to access, and if there's anything else that you think that might be useful to you that could help you spread the word and talk to a friend about how they can make the switch, reach out to us. We're always open, and this is what Kat and I do. We're available to hear from you, our members. So once again, thank you so much for your time, and we will stay on the line in case you have any questions.
I will add, since we do have extra time, if you are interested in policy, because this is only an hour-long session, you can go to ripower.org/energybills or our blog and check out those bills that we've been advocating for. In addition to the RES extension, we have been advocating for the extension of least cost procurement, LCP, which puts energy efficiency before supply. And we've also been in support of the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, which was proposed by the Treasurer, who was recently our keynote. So some things to think about if you're interested in the policy side of our work, ripower.org/blog or ripower.org/energybills.
And one final reminder, as Kat pointed out, ripower.org/bootcamp, you will find the slides that we went over today, and you will also have a link to today's webinar recording. So feel free to share that with a friend as well. So thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great day.